Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Rates and Lanes podcast. I am your host, Rico Muhammad. That good looking fellow over there in the white shirt, that's Chuck Snow. And this is the Rates and Lanes podcast. We want to thank you guys and girls for giving us your time and attention. We appreciate you guys doing so. If you would do us a huge favor, make sure that you like, share, subscribe, comment, leave us some feedback. Help us get to a bigger algorithm out there so we can kind of get the spread the word on the show. This week, man, Chuck, I wanted to ask you, I've seen a lot of pictures and everything coming back. How was the truck show?
The truck show was, Rico, was incredible. There had to be 400 trucks. It was put on in this, it's a very small town between kind of, for our American listeners, kind of northeast of Watertown, New York, on the Canadian side. Beautiful, beautiful area. The people that put the truck show on their property, the Tackaberries. I just want to take a moment and thank the Tackaberry family. They are avid. Now they are in the aggregate business. They run a bunch of gravel pits and construction related businesses. However, they have a collection of about 350 of the most beautiful antique show trucks you ever saw in your life, all in different buildings. And they are the most generous people I've ever met in my entire life. They're just wonderful, genuine, generous people. And I want to thank the Tackaberry family and their team for putting on this show, the Athens Truck Show. It was fantastic. I saw people, my God, I saw people I hadn't seen in 45 years. It was wonderful. So we had great weather till I made it coming home. And I had my big Mac out, the one I call the Blue Genie. And luckily, for the grace of God, I had put some Rain-X on the windshield. I'm a big believer in that product. I had raindrops the size of teacups falling on, and they were coming down pretty good, and they were just bouncing off the windshield. Made driving a lot easier. Unfortunately, this particular truck, the way it's geared, thinks it is pulling 44,000 pounds, and it gets about 5 miles per gallon. Excuse me. So I figured I could have gone to Europe for the same price as I went to the truck show, but I had a better time at the truck show. So I'm glad I went.
Well, it's funny you say that.
Listen, you know what? I paid almost double that, man.
It's funny you say that. So this week, fuel has jumped almost 20 cents per gallon on
Whoa.
average. And it's kind of strange. Well, I shouldn't say it's kind of strange because we still all know what's going on in the world. So, you know, we're left with that whole debacle to deal with. And unfortunately, it comes at a time where we're still kind of fighting a little bit of the volume and everything. And also, we are right in the midst of break week, ladies and gentlemen. This is the CVSA's break week enforcement week. And so fuel prices are up, and we're gonna check across all the different other segments to see how they're performing. Of course, we're running a week behind, so it's going to be interesting next week to see how everything shakes out. But with the numbers of fuel jumping up, and also we're in the midst of break week, it's going to be real interesting to see how the market kind of shakes out.
I agree. And I don't think our listeners, if they're doing everything right, they don't have anything to worry about. Roll over that scale, and maybe you'll even get a good inspection, which looks good on your record.
Yeah, I've rolled across 3 so far. So but I hadn't had any issues. But you know,
because you know what, you keep a whole bunch of us talked all weekend about that, and it's true. If you keep your equipment looking good and you behave well, nobody's going to bother you. They're looking for the bad guys.
Yeah, I was at a shipper yesterday. They were still kind of talking about how they're still dealing with, and one of their complaints that they're dealing with is they're still dealing with a lot of her complaint at this particular shipper. They're still dealing with a lot of different uh, non-English speaking people.
I've
And
heard that.
I'm quite surprised that you still got people that are still taking a chance with this running out here not being able to understand and speak the English language. I mean, and it was pretty bad from what she was saying. She had to kind of call the guy 3 different times to tell him to back into the dock. He didn't even understand back into the dock. So,
Yeah, you know what? And the sad part is, a lot of these people, there's enough information available that while they're going up the road, they could be learning English.
yeah, I don't know if there's something that you're going to be able to do. I think it's something that you kind of got to go ahead and that's really just got to be a hard and fast, hard stop rule that needs to be strictly enforced.
I agree, but there's enough courses out there, introduction to English, just like there is introduction to Spanish and French and Italian and every other language. You can at least get the basics to start there.
Right, right.
You know,
Well,
and there's no reason.
jumping over into this week's drive in report, of course, remember always the caveat the rates and everything that you see here does not include the fuel surcharge. And of course, depending on your negotiation skills, your mileage may vary. So we're sitting here this week. We're showing that the dry vans are checking in, showing at about $2.38 per mile on average. That is down by 2.5% week over week. We are still up by 45.6% year over year. And the load to truck ratio sits nationally at about 10.23 loads per truck.
That part's good.
Uh, yes. Load postings fell 7.5%, while truck posts fell 3.2%. The ratio declined 4.4% as freight pulled back faster than capacity. So we still got a little bit of a capacity issue, but freight is kind of balancing itself out. I don't think we have quote unquote. I'm not going to use the word trucker shortage.
No, I don't think so either. I think we have one coming up though.
Yeah, yeah. So rates remain 45.5 percent above last year, but broad regional softening means protect minimums and avoid weak markets such as Florida and South Georgia. They exit at about $1.90 per mile on average coming out of those particular markets.
If
Moving Yes, yes. And moving over, of course, it's kind of if you know anything about trucking, but if you're just starting, if you're just kind of getting your baptism by fire, this time of year is unless you have a direct or dedicated lane going into Florida or South Georgia, it's kind of rough, tough going getting in and out of there. Um, so jumping on over into the flatbed segment, we're showing that the average rate per mile for flatbeds is checking in at $2.87 per mile on average. Once again, no fuel surcharges included in that. That's down also 2.7% week over week. We're still sitting at 40.6% above where we were last year, year over year, and load to truck ratios for flatbeds is sitting at 40.66. Top origin is the southeastern region of the United States. They are averaging $3.51 per mile on average. Once again, that does not include fuel surcharge. Market signals, load posts fell 9.2%, while truck posts fell by 1.6%. The ratio decline was 7.7% as industrial and construction demands soften. Um, which is kind of crazy because usually summertime home building and everything is usually the time, but really the housing market has kind of been absent in this whole flatbed this kind of growth spurt that flatbeds have had over this little run that they've been on. So, but we have a little bit of softening coming in, but flatbeds are still looking pretty strong overall. And I think that we're seeing the because we're running a week behind, and I think that you're starting to see one of the main factors that come in with the as far as truck postings go. I think you're starting to see people that were kind of anticipating break week and getting ready to prepare to take the week off.
Yeah, I think Rico, I think flatbed is going to really take off soon because you have an awful lot of houses that have to be rebuilt because of weather and things like that.
Absolutely, absolutely. Yeah, it's coming, and of course, we still have not. Think we're just getting ready to maybe enter into, and hopefully we don't have a rough one. But I think we're starting to get ready to enter into the hurricane season as well. So that's
Yeah.
always that's always. But like I say, hopefully we don't have too bad of a hurricane season this year.
Yeah.
Reefer rates we're showing at $2.72 per mile on average. That also dropped by 2.9% week over week. Year over year, we're sitting at 39.5% above where we were this time last year. And the national load to truck ratio for reefers is sitting at 17.85. Top origin for reefers is California, showing an average outbound rate of $3.33 per mile on average. Once again, fuel surcharge is not included. Load postings fell by 13.3%, while truck postings fell by 4.1%. That ratio of dropped by 9.6% as summer produce volumes eased. Summer produce is fading. Prices in Florida, South Georgia exit before booking inbound. Outbound reefer averages only about $1.96 per mile on average coming out of those markets. So those are the tough markets that you have to deal with reefers.
Especially with fuel being as expensive as it is.
Yes. And overall, California and for reefers and dry vans, it seems to be the hot spot when it comes to rates. The hot spots for flatbeds, of course, is the Southeast. So once again, your mileage may vary depending upon how your negotiation skills are, or what kind of relationships you have in the areas that you are running in. But overall, that's a snapshot nationally of how things are shaking out. Is there anything else going on, Chuck, that we didn't cover that we need to touch on before moving on to a different subject?
No, you know what? I'm just thinking some of those, reefer rates are a touchdown because I think some of the issue is as your fuel goes up and gas goes up, people have less money to spend. So they may not be buying as much fresh fruits and vegetables and even meat.
Well, there's a few things going on. I don't know how much of an effect. There's a lot of stuff going on in the news as far as a lot of recalls at the moment.
Right.
You had the things with the jalapenos, with the
Yeah.
lettuce, the greens. Then you have the situation with the this something came out about one of the food packers are doing horse meat or something. And of course, you had the closure of the. I don't know if you heard much or know much about that. The sudden closure of the meat packing facility. Um, Man, I forget which city it was in, but JBS just kind of shut down and closed one of their meat packing facilities.
How
Um,
recent was that? Was
it was
that
like last
when?
week.
Okay, no, I didn't hear about that one.
Yeah, yeah, it was like last week. So it's been fairly recent. So a lot of those different things, of course, all of that product would move on refrigerated trailers.
Oh yeah, has
Uh,
to.
and, and like you say, everything is kind of, for the summer produce, everything's kind of winding itself down.
Yeah,
So and I think we're starting to get ready to gear up for, um, preparing for Thanksgiving and holidays.
yeah, it's right around the corner, and that's the next thing. We're over trying to stock shelf for Labor Day, so next is the autumn holiday.
Right, right. So overall, I think that one of the best things that we got to make sure, I'm going to pull this one back up. Got to make sure that you are negotiating hard right now. Make sure that if you have any kind of leverage at all, make sure that you are understanding when the broker telling you that's all they got in it. Make sure that you are not just settling for that and explaining or selling your position as to why you need a better rate, because this fuel is a real cost. That's not something that you're gonna see 2 weeks down the road. You're gonna see that immediately. And so you got to make sure that you're negotiating very hard to make sure that you're protecting your margins when it comes to the fuel, because many of us are operating on the spot market. And if you don't have a contract with fuel surcharge in it, you have to make sure that you are negotiating very tough to get your fair share of a fuel surcharge. Um,
Rico, I want to just add something. Some of the consulting I've done and mentoring, what happens quite often is, especially for inexperienced carriers that are fairly new at this, they don't take into consideration their deadhead miles from where they're emptying out to where they have to go to reload, and they may have to backtrack 100 miles to get that load. That's going to take them 100 miles further past where they really need to go. So you need to take that all into consideration.
yeah, and I think I'm going to try to tinker around and play with something. I'm going to try to see if I can create. I mean, I've been trying to tinker around a little bit with AI, and I want to try to see if there's some way I can maybe create and it shouldn't be too difficult to do. I've seen a couple of people had some posted different places. I'm gonna see if we can maybe create one, uh, um, a calculator where you can put your miles in and everything. Use the AI to where it can kind of help create a number to help some people out when it comes to that information. Now, of course, calculator is only as good as the input that you can feed it. So you got to make sure that you understand what your costs per mile are. We got to circle all the way back around, come full circle to the making the main thing the main thing.
That's
Got to
right.
understand. Got to understand what your costs are. Got to understand what those real costs are on a day in, day out, weekly, monthly basis. And you got to kind of stay on top of that. You got to kind of keep your finger on the pulse of that. So that kind of gives me a little bit of a project. I'm going to try to see if I can. I'm not making any promises just yet. I'm a tinker around. I'm gonna tinker around with it and see how good it. See if I can make it where it's worthy enough to publish. I don't want to put anything out where it's kind of half-assed. As my granddaddy used to always say, son, there's two ways to do things: first class and half-assed. And I don't want to do anything half-assed.
No, no, you don't. Yeah. Glad for our branding, brother. But
So that is a snapshot of everything that's going on in the industry right now. I did see a interesting article that Chuck got a chance to read it. I didn't get a chance to
I
parse
did,
all the
but
way through it.
I just want to say one thing before we go on to that. Chris Spear, the head of the ATA, has suddenly resigned. And
Yeah, I did
I'm
see
not
that.
going into that whole thing, but if our listeners last night around just around 4 or 5 o'clock on Sirius XM, Charles Gracie ended his show with uh, with some words about Chris Spear, and it was just so well done. My hat goes off to Charles Gracie. It was eloquent. It was pointed, and I'm not going to go into it. But if any of our listeners on their Sirius XM app can grab the end of Charles Gracie's show yesterday afternoon, I think it was around 4 o'clock or something. Listen to it. It was about 5 minutes he went on, and man, did he make points. He really did. It was phenomenal. He did not attack. He really did not attack Chris Spear, but not hard enough, anyways. But he got to the point, and it was so well done that it deserves recognition. So if any of our listeners have that ability on their Sirius app, it's certainly worth listening to.
That may actually be on YouTube already, Chuck.
Oh, okay. If you can grab it there, great. Because it was one of the best things I've heard in a long time.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I was just kind of going to tee you up because I didn't get a chance to really go through the article. I was going to tee you up if you had any thoughts on it.
Well,
You
okay.
want to,
So let
you
me
want
bring
to.
everybody. I'll bring everybody up to date as much as I can. I have to tell you, as a Canadian on this side of the border, and I have deep American roots. late mother was born in the States. I have all sorts of friends and family in the States. And I have a great love for your country and your people. Uh, Perhaps I don't like everything that your current administration is doing. I will go on record saying that. They're doing some great stuff and they're doing some not so great stuff. Um, we've got this trade war going on, and this should never have happened. And there's two wrongs here. The first wrong is, Mr. Trump. He loves, as he said, he was even way before he got into politics. He loves tariffs, and and we geared our supply chains in both our countries around tariff-free trade. And now all of a sudden, that happened around 40 years ago when it really started, when we went to the complete free trade agreement. And it's been working very well. But Mr. Trump, in his wisdom, decided to end this, and he wants to collect tariff. And then he started a punitive tariff of at the just a whim. And I think it's one of his many tricks he uses for negotiating. He negotiates unlike anybody I ever saw. He negotiates with a sledgehammer, which isn't really negotiation. And all of a sudden he wants 50%. Now that 50% tariff will have devastating impacts for Canada. We had sent down a delegation to deal with this, but I think part of the issue was personal. Our current Prime Minister, Mark Carney, did not show a whole lot of respect. And some of our listeners say, why would you show respect to Trump? Well, because he's holding the cards, that's why. When somebody's holding a gun at your face, you don't start making fun of his mother. You have to deal with it, and you may have to kiss a little bit of butt to get yourself out of that jam. And Mark Carney did not do that, and furthermore, it just made things worse. And the prime minister we had previous to Mark Carney from the same party, he did not show any respect whatsoever to Trump or the Americans. That was a huge mistake we made. Another mistake we made, which is a business mistake, and we made this as a country, and I want every one of our listeners to remember this. This is the number one rule of business. Do not put all of your eggs in one basket. I ran and built a very successful business with the understanding that we never wanted to be more than at the maximum 20% one customer at the very most, and we really preferred 20% one industry. But if you're any more than 20% for one customer, that is a danger sign. Canada was way over that mark. The United States was our biggest trading partner, probably about 75, 80%, which is deadly. Trump knew that, and if that happens, it's just a ticket for disaster. So that's where we are now. We have dismantled since the free trade agreement of like 1987, or I think it was. We have dismantled so many of our Canadian branch offices and factories. Every town where I live in Southern Ontario had a factory. Those factories are all gone. The product is made in the US. So we've put ourselves in one hell of a bad position. And Trump knows this. If he listens to this, he's not learning anything new. And he's taking advantage of this. And we've got a problem on our hands. And we will have a very hard time replacing the business we are losing from America by dealing with Asia, Saudi Arabia, Europe, because the closest place we have next to the US and Mexico, of course, would probably be Europe. And we need boats to get to Europe. And it's very expensive to ship things on boats. And it's not going to work. We do need to somehow get back to the table and work this out with the Americans. And I don't think that our administration is capable of doing that at this time. And we can all talk tough, elbows up, and Canada's great and everything else. Well, I'm sorry. We are the losers of the Stanley Cup, or whatever you want to call it, the Heisman Trophy. We never got it. And we don't even know what really happened. We're hearing stories from our prime minister, but How much of that is he's covering his backside, we don't know. But I don't think things look very rosy for Canada right now.
Yeah, I saw that, and I was a little bit concerned because I mean, hey, I know you, so it automatically.
Well, Rico, and you know what? For the same reason, I know you, and we've been friends for about 10 years or so, and our American friends are going to suffer over this too, because there's a lot of things you people get from Canada and you sell to Canada. If you came into one of our stores, so much of what uh, what we sell comes from the U.S. because we're such a number one. We're a small country. I think we hit 40 million people because we brought a whole bunch in from overseas that don't even work. So that didn't
Right,
really help. They were all living on welfare. Um, Unfortunately, Canada is such an expensive place to manufacture and to operate a business in. First of all, the country is mired in red tape. Um, it's total opposite of the U.S. Energy is huge. It's almost double our diesel fuel. Now, granted, we earn Canadian dollars, which is 40% less than yours, or almost 40%, but we earn Canadian dollars, we spend Canadian dollars. A dollar is a dollar. You earn
right,
US dollars, you spend US dollars. I earn Canadian dollars, I spend Canadian dollars. I filled up my truck the other day and I thought, wow. And then I thought, it's really using way too much fuel. Well, it was using a lot of fuel, but not that much. It was the fact that the fuel was almost $10 a gallon.
right. Wow.
Yeah, because whereas when I filled up, it was do the math. It was 229 a liter, and there's I think 4.1 liters to the Canadian gallon, or 3.8 to the U.S. gallon. So it's at least it's $9. You're $9 a gallon anyways. So how
Right.
can we compete with somebody who can do it on the other side of the border, and their cost for fuel is basically almost half. And it seems
Yeah.
wages, because in the city of Toronto, near the city near where I live, a small lousy house, I mean, this is a starter home, is $1 million.
Woo.
That's a starter home, you know.
Yeah, that's uber expensive.
It is. So how much are you going to pay a person on an assembly line to make widgets if his house is $1 million? You've got to pay
Yeah,
that person $100,000 a year, because he's going to lose almost half of that to his taxes. And so that there lies the problem here. So I don't think as a country, and I've heard all this rhetoric. The one thing Trump did is he brought Canada together. Yes, he has in some ways, because there's a lot of people in this country that think that our prime minister and his entourage that we're dealing with, um, Washington, that they walk on water by walking away from the deal. But I don't think walking away from the deal served Canada's best interests in the long run. But soon, we will see. But for the time being, uh, we are in for some really, unless some miracle happens, we are in for a real tough sleigh ride. Now, there's been a little bit of talk, and the Alberta premier put her foot down hard, no, about some sort of an embargo or exit duty on oil, and she doesn't want to mess with that, and I think she's right. Same as electricity. Those are the last thing we want to do. We have a trade war going on now, which Mr. Trump did start, but however, we don't want to make our American friends park their cars at the side of the road because there's no oil for the oil that you get from Alberta, or freeze in the dark because you can't get electricity from Canada. So we're not like that. And I hope we never become like that.
all right, well said. Well, I think that kind of, hopefully we get to a position that, like you say, we can calm our heads and egos will get put aside, and things prevail, and we get back to some sort of normalcy that we once enjoyed.
Yeah, and I
With
don't, and I don't know how your system will work if the Democrats win in November. I don't know what difference that'll make because as you know, everything in Washington takes a long time to change.
absolutely, absolutely. Well, with that being said, I guess that's good enough for us to kind of put a bow on it for this week. We'll get ready to. It's going to be interesting to see how next week shakes out, especially by us being in the middle of break week this week. So it's going to be interesting to see if rates improved any, how many people actually took the week off, um, and then I think we're starting to see a little bit. Man, this fuel prices, we gotta. I don't know. This fuel price, we got to get our arms wrapped around this thing.
Well, yeah, this is crazy, and this is crippling our economies.
Yes, yes. Right. When we thought we were turning the corner, we
Yeah,
we see it.
isn't that always the case? But I think I think somehow, if cooler heads prevail on this whole thing all over, I think we could maybe fix this thing. But maybe that's a lofty dream on my side.
Yeah, yeah. From your, they say from your lips to God's ears. Hopefully, we get some progress on all these fronts.
I
Well,
certainly hope.
Chuck. Chuck, I think for before we get out of here, let good folks know how they can find you if they got a question they want to pick your brain.
Please do. Just email me, chucksnow280 at outlook.com. Put your phone number on it because I usually just phone our listeners when they write into me and help you with any issue that you have. I know some of our listeners are having some issues, especially the Canadians, and anything I can do to help any of our listeners, I will be there for you. And with that, Rico, I'll let you back grin a hole for another week.
All right. Well, quick check in. I'm down by about another 3 pounds this week. We're still working on it. We're still battling goal weight. When I started this thing, I was 353. Goal weight is 250. We're going to try to get to 250 within 1 year. We don't want to go too fast, but we want to try to be deliberate about trying to get there. So we want to
Wow,
try to
you're
lose
gonna, you're
about
gonna
a
weigh
couple.
less than me soon, man.
Well, with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we want you guys to continue to stay safe out there, stay healthy, stay profitable. That's the most important thing. Keep it in between the mustard and mayonnaise. We'll talk at your same time, same place next week. God bless you and good night.
Catch on the flip flop.